Hey,
Hello. Can you hear me?
yeah, I could hear you.
Nice.
So how are you doing
Yeah.
this? How you doing this week?
I'm good. Yeah, feeling a little better. I went to New Orleans for a friend's bachelor party
Oh, that's cool.
this weekend. So that was a lot of fun.
How
New
far
Orleans
is
is cool.
Orleans? Like
New
you driving
Orleans.
there? Can you drive there?
Uh, no, Louisiana.
Oh yeah,
Um it's yeah, it was like a I don't know, 4.5 hour flight or something.
yeah.
Um and Yeah, it is quite the melting pot. Yeah, it's like in the South and
Hmm.
jazz music, cool food. Yeah, it was interesting. It was cool.
Any game dev game dev scene in New Orleans?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a great question. It wasn't quite what I expected. It was an interesting place.
Huh. And then
Yeah.
how long were you there?
How about you? Just like 2 or 3 days.
Hmm. Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Last week I took Thursday, Friday off, and then so I had like a 4 day weekend, and I just like my wife is in China for 6 weeks right now, so it's just me and my cat in the apartment. And I
Oh,
had time to
gotcha.
just kind of I just rotated. Yeah, I mentioned last time I played like 1,000 times Resist, and then I've played What Remains of Edith Finch, and that was really good as well.
Ooh,
Yeah, I had
nice.
that one, like I bought that one quite a while ago, and I just never found. But 1,000 times Resist motivated me to try try it, and then so it was also like pretty amazing. And it's kind of fascinating how
Yeah.
many new things it seems Edith Finch bring into the walking simulator that don't seem to be have replicated that much. The text in the air and the little mini game style things that go on, and uh, I haven't seen a walking simulator since Edith Finch that quite strikes that same chord. But maybe I haven't played
Yeah,
like
I
so much.
agree. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I also haven't played a ton, but yeah. What
but
was
then
your
I
favorite stories?
yeah, let's see.
You need.
I guess like the fish canning one was the most like memorable.
Uh-huh.
I think a friend had told me
Right.
about that a little bit before as well. But yeah, it was so like
Yeah.
elaborate uh and like memorable. But then the house itself, the architecture, the way it goes up, and it was kind of fun just making my way up top to the house, especially that one room that has I think like a PlayStation in it, and there's a little like computer setup. And there was someone like middle age, like 20s to 30s, lived there, I think, in the story. And then you go up higher, there's like a
Uh-huh.
little kitchenette or something. That little
Yeah.
room, and especially there's a little setup with like a keyboard, two monitors that looks out over the forest. I think the room is built like inside a boat or something. And that room just had really interesting vibes. It just felt like it was up,
Uh-huh.
secluded, like you couldn't, you have to get to it through the house. So you're sort of, once you're there, you're sort of up there. It feels like you're a little bit away from things, like rise, like you sort of have a good view. And then there's a little, it just felt like
Yeah.
cozy as well, like just a little spot for games and programming, and then a little kitchen area. And so
Nice.
that I felt like that was pretty good vibes. Yeah. Do you have like a particular thing that you liked about it?
Homie. Um, I really liked the whole thing. I thought, yeah, cool story, very creative. Um, I liked it was an earlier story about um someone where she like it becomes this like tabloid murder, but then
Yeah.
you play through it and it's almost like comic book style 80s horror. And I thought that was really creative, and
Yeah.
I was genuinely like a little scared. Like it was good. Um
Yeah. Going down in the basement and stuff during the story. Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, I remember there was one video essay, I don't remember who it was by, that helped sort of contextualize the game for me and like made the argument that the grandmother is sort of a villain where
Hmm.
she's sort of this shadowy figure that doesn't show up that much in the game really, but is uh yeah, like there's just a lot of subtext that like she's sort of perpetuating this curse stuff, and that's like a self-fulfilling prophecy and all that. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, I was a thinker. Feel like
Yeah,
there's a
it
lot
seemed
going
that
on.
yeah, I could see like I obviously don't have anything at hand. I really didn't realize the grandmother as a character that much, but I'm sure the essay like made that
Yeah.
argument strong. But in a more general sense, I was getting the impression in the game that it's almost like if, if a family believes they're cursed, then it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy in itself. But
Right.
in a way,
Right.
like the game sort of crosses the line though, where it's like there couldn't be that many coincidences that happened, and the way they just
Uh-huh.
this strange behavior of the family and is all mixed in there. And then but just like the sheer
Right.
number of like young deaths is like doesn't seem like it would be all
True.
just because they thought they were cursed. It seems like yeah. So then it starts to lean towards yeah, maybe there was actually some kind of curse and it could point to a certain character or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, good game. Good game.
Yeah. Then I just kept. I played Jasant as well, the rock climbing game from a while ago.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
yeah,
I
because
haven't played that one.
I buy like every once in a while I identify a game as like a game that I should play and then I buy it and then like years pass and I don't play and then but just I feel like 1,000 times resist really because I had to put I pushed through it 8 hours and it was good. It like delivered on things. And so then I was like, oh, like a 1 hour, Edith Finch being like a 1.5 hour walking simulator. I'm like, no problem. And then I just played that one.
This is
And
nothing.
then, yeah. And
Yeah.
then I started playing Jasant and I was like, oh, this is like 4 or 5 hours maybe. And so I just like kind of got through it and I was like, that's pretty cool. And then I started looking up, for the first time, I went on How Long to Beat, that website and I started checking.
Right.
Like I have all these games that I've bought that I haven't played that I heard about at some point, and so I started looking at like whenever I see one that's like 2-3 hours, I'm like, yeah, I'll boot that up like one evening and just get through it and have the experience.
Nice. That's a it's a great way to do it. Yeah. I
But
gotta
now I don't know what to do. Like if a game is over 10 hours and I'm not sure about it, I still now I get the feeling of like, well, like I can't really I have a hard time treating every game as an individual commitment with like vastly
Mm.
varying skill required and time required. So then I'm in the rhythm of like, oh, every game's like 2-3 hours, I beat them, they're not demanding. But then I think that's what led me to like I beat Elden Ring and stuff at some point. I think I always used like
Nice.
the rune cheat where you could get a bunch of runes. You could go
Uh-huh.
down into the underworld and get so many runes that it made it like way easier. But even then, I spent so long like fighting certain bosses in Elden Ring, just wanting to move on and not really caring any. I just like bash my head against the boss until I got lucky and got through, and then I'm like, finally, I can explore the rest of the world. Uh, and so then I was like, really, I'll be like totally in not the right mindset. But games don't really advertise so much. Like they can't really tell you always how long it'll take to get through the game, and they can't tell you how hard it's going to be. And but one interesting thing I heard was that in Control you can turn on God mode essentially and have like one shot kills, and that was kind of interesting to me
Oh,
because I could see
story
myself like
mode.
Control being a game where I get into Control, I start liking the story, and then I would just get killed or something or hit some kind of passage. I don't identify Control as like a hard shooter or whatever, but it's nice to have
Hmm.
the option of like guaranteed you will not uh, you know get grind to a halt in this game because of skill. You can always flip on a certain mode or something.
Yeah, that's a nice idea. I feel like I want to get into the whole Remedy universe starting with Control maybe because it's kind of I mean, I
Hmm.
guess slightly Max Payne, but I feel like Control's kind of the first one, or maybe Alan Wake. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't actually
Uh,
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only
Yeah,
thing
it
I
is
really liked.
intimidating.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
It is intimidating with how long
Right.
everything takes. Yeah.
Yeah, because I just want to get like a little walkthrough tour almost of Control, see all the environments, read a couple of the more interesting things. Maybe there's fascinating mechanics at some points, but I don't want I don't want to spend like hours kind of getting through areas or reading paragraphs of text. Because there's always like maybe I'll be halfway through and then I sit down to play it, and then there's a cheap boss that's too hard, or it's unknown what you should do, or there's like paragraphs of text you have to read, and it's impossible that every day I sit down to play Control I'll be like in the right mindset for whatever it throws at me. Like
Right.
I'd rather like read the story as a short form novel, do the walking simulator, and then check out maybe some of the shooting mechanics in like a more of a, like let's do some like room clearing or something, but not try to
Hmm.
observe the like a, if I'm trying to like check out the nice scenery and get shot at and read this text that may or may not be disturbing, because
Uh-huh.
sometimes there's like violent deaths or something in those games that are like I wasn't like ready for that. Like why would it
Uh-huh.
do that?
Yeah. My brain wasn't ready for. Yeah. Yeah. I get that. Yeah, I think for me, like the only, well, I play a lot of chess, I guess, which is a certain type of brain
Mhm.
exercise. But really, the only type of game that I feel like I can hop into with no activation energy is like roguelike, deck builder-ish type games.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm like, yeah, I can just play it and not have to like convince myself to play it, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I
there's
don't
one
know.
I just came across. I found this YouTuber. He made a couple simple games. He made one called Hexagod that is like a simple city builder where you just place down hexagons and there's different a skill tree and stuff. But in one of his videos, he was talking about not wanting to get burned out on game development, and he mentioned this other Steam game that he cited as one of the kinds of games that he'd want to make at some point, which was like a $1 game where you're just it looks like the game Asteroids. You have a little ship in the middle, and there's asteroids, and you're shooting them, and then but you shoot the asteroids to get little like in-game currency, which you then use to buy upgrades to shoot more asteroids. And it was like a $1
Uh-huh.
game, and I've been playing it, and yeah, that's totally a game where I'll just like throw on a podcast and then just play that game in the background, and it's
Nice.
it's like a great deal for like $1, and it's got a whole you start buying these upgrades, you get to a certain point, then you can sort of I think there's going to be like an end to the game once you've bought all this stuff, and
Yeah,
that's a good
those are
story.
good too. Have you played Vampire Survivors or any of the spin-offs?
No, I've
Or
heard that name, and that's another.
oh
There's
yeah.
these game franchises that I'll just hear a bunch about, but I'd never hear
Uh-huh.
like the magic set of words that makes me suddenly interested. Like as soon as when I hear Vampire
Yeah.
Survivors, I have a bunch of assumptions about what it is, and then I just don't even. Sometimes I don't bother looking into it, or maybe I'll throw up a trailer and then see the graphics and make a quick call, and then I'll be like wrong
Right.
most of the time. Like I won't. I'll just yeah,
Yeah.
just but then it's like if no one gets me into it, then I don't take the time to like sell myself on it or something. But I find that very strange
Yeah.
about
It
me.
just
That's
reminded me.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
But what's
I
your
get
how
that.
did
Yeah.
have you played it, and like how did you come across it?
I think yeah, I came across it like shortly after it came out actually. Um I just saw like I was just looking for things to play during I think it was like during the it was like 2020 like uh early pandemic maybe, and people were like yeah like this game is whatever it was at the time $2 or $3, everybody who plays it loves it and puts 100 hours into it, just buy it. And it's like yeah, it's just incredibly addicting. It just reminded me your description of the asteroid game. Like my guess is that the asteroid game is um, sort of in the same genre. it's just super simple, addictive loop of you just auto attack. You just walk around and auto attack, and then choose the upgrades, and waves of enemies come at you. And that's it. And somehow that just spawned this whole new genre where now I think there's just like I don't know, thousands of games that are vampire survivors likes. I don't know what the actual term is, but yeah, and they're a little dangerous for me for sure. I feel like I'll get headaches from playing playing those
Yeah.
too much. Just yeah,
Yeah, those are good
good
for
brain
like
off.
like those little mechanics. I feel like when we're designing games, the more of these proven mechanics that we know of, the more we can solve design problems by just throwing in something that we've seen somewhere. So
Yeah,
that's why,
that and now that I think about it, like that game was sort of inspiring for me in terms of like it was just this one guy, I forget his name, Luca something. And it, I think then he brought someone on to help with the graphics and stuff, but it was it was made with just like an asset pack and super simple, like in his words, kind of shitty graphics that he was like he liked that, and it was just this one new mechanic that I guess had sort of been done before, but just not executed quite right, and it's just a really good mechanic. Like that was it, and and then he had a bajillion downloads because people, um, yeah, it just spread. And I feel like it's like, wow, like certainly there's luck involved, but also if you just kind of if you have a one really good idea for a mechanic, um, as a solo developer, like it is possible,
yeah.
that you can make something with reach and yeah.
Yeah, I guess the ultimate is easy to get into but hard to master. I've heard that means everybody can play it, but you can play it indefinitely because it's hard to beat it's hard to
Yeah.
become a professional at the game. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Right. Yeah, I definitely want to make games like that for sure. They're easy to learn, hard to master. Vampire Survivors very much isn't. I mean, maybe it's changed in recent updates, but when when I was playing it, it's just fun. It's not hard. Like there's nothing too difficult about it.
there's
But
no like is it like play to die? Like you always die at the end of a wave, or can you beat the can
yeah,
you
you
cross some threshold?
can uh the yeah, this is yeah, for people that have played it more recently, maybe everything has changed, but uh from the early game updates, it was basically you play till you die, which for the first bunch of rounds would be, you know, you'd sort of slowly survive longer and longer. It'd be like 5 minutes and 10 minutes, and then eventually, and there's like a few different maps at the time, and then if you as you get better, there's like some meta progression, uh, and the roguelike sort of nature of it. Um, and then you survive till the end, which is like half an hour maybe, and then this death character comes and kills you. Um, and like that's it. And then you just kind of keep going, and you can unlock new characters and new silly things. But the game stays basically the same. It becomes almost a collectathon after a bit. Um, I did think it was a fun touch where I was like, I wonder if you could kill this final death character, like if it's possible. And like, sure enough, like there is a way, and it was the developer like thought about it. And yeah, like it's almost like you stay behind this wall, and it has to be like pixel perfect. And then if you do it and execute it correctly, like you kill death, and then you unlock some like super secret character. Um, yeah, it was just small touches, but mostly just the base mechanic of it is all that was the main draw, and it's just really good.
Hmm. Yeah, that seems pretty good. Yeah, I'll have to look at it. Sometimes the style, like if I boot up a game and I get into it, the game like leads me along in the way that a good game does, and then I'll be into it. But often there's an interesting thing where I'll open up a Steam page and the video is always like a ton of enemies, all these powers everywhere, and it like the game is trying to prove to you that once you've played it for a while, you will get to this level of chaos that's like satisfying. But seeing that as like a first, like every game does this though. I think that's just the way to like they don't want their game to come across as too boring or something, so they make these like super
Uh-huh.
hyped up trailers. But then I just find it's like, but I don't want like all these missiles and powers. I want like a couple enemies. I want some precise like shooting, and I want to see like starting from 0, in-game currency. I want like 5, and then buy my first upgrade and see things get a bit easier. Like that's how every game does start when you play the game. But when they show you the trailer, they just go right into like all the insane bullet hell stuff that's happening. And to me,
Yeah,
I sort
yeah,
of want like a steady stream of enemies. I want to see the number go up slowly and like manage the like the exponential curve of buying power ups or something.
right. Cutting trailers like is a whole other skill that I haven't thought about yet. But yeah,
Yeah, and I guess sometimes the art, like I think the art style of Vampire Survivors probably appeals to people that have like an affinity for a certain like almost I would classify it as like arcadey, uh like 2D console sprite graphics. I tend to like
right,
I like this asteroid game, or the asteroid game that I just picked up. It's got like a CRT effect on the screen, like everything's flat, and there's like vibrant like neon colors on the asteroids, and then dark space in the background, and there's like a CRT monitor shader on the screen, and that
nice,
really appeals to me as this like everything's like the hitboxes very clear where they are, the things like sort of pop a little bit when they get hit, and everything's very like
right,
tactile and but I guess the first thing that I see when I look at Vampire Survivors is that the main character, the way they're standing is that like 2.5D sort of thing where immediately I wonder, where is the character's hitbox, like at their feet, or like how high does it go?
uh-huh.
And then it's like it's not symmetrical, but if it was symmetrical, it would look worse, I imagine, because it would be like little Pokemon like style characters, like top down. So in order to see the character, it's got to be that style. But since it's 2D, it's like an off perspective. But then it's like there's so many enemies. It's like this is a very precise, like you're maneuvering in a certain way. But even the enemies, this way the way they are, they're not like the sprite is not their hitbox. The hitbox and the visuals is maybe slightly different. Uh, and
Right. Yeah,
and I'm sure that
not at
doesn't
all
like
a
matter, but
precision game.
yeah, uh,
Yeah.
I feel like if I played it, it would definitely all work together and probably like feel like good as intended. But when I first look at stuff like
Right.
that, I always like visual inspection. It's the questions of how the exact things line up don't get answered visually. That you have to do the extra work of like playing it and just seeing that it is good or something.
Right. Yeah, I think it is the type of thing where you could know within maybe even like 5 minutes if you like it. Like like it doesn't change substantially as you play. Like it's just the same thing. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's been so many. Like, I feel like you can also play a Vampire Survivors like game in like literally any art style now. They've made it. Um,
Yeah, I've
there's one I
probably
played.
played at least one. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like, yeah, I played one recently that I quite enjoyed called Picayune Dreams. I don't know if maybe I mentioned it to you at some point, but
I
it
don't think so.
just like Yeah, it's a Vampire Survivors like, but then it also has um like a little visual novel that's and both the art style of both is just like as psychedelic space horror as possible. Um, and the story's real trippy. Uh, and yeah, it's just good. It like totally works. And the gameplay is like good. I don't think it's like better than any other Vampire Survivors like, but it's just fun to see like yeah, this genre spin into um so many different art styles and themes and then that are just borrowing this core mechanic. um yeah, it's just cool,
Yeah,
people
there's.
borrowing
It's funny to
each other.
see like whenever it's the first game that sort of proves a set of mechanics, and then right afterwards they feel very natural in retrospect. There's, I guess, a handful
Right.
of games in different genres that put certain pieces together and then they just resonate so well, and they just seem to have no extra fat, and then everyone can copy, change the art style, change bits and pieces, and add and remove things to vary like the genre. But it's so cool to
Mm-hmm.
see from when someone, like, maybe people in min-max discussions, they said about the game Blueprints that there's not a whole lot of subgenre words to describe puzzlers, and that when they were saying that, like, how would you describe Blueprints, essentially, like, it's got various puzzle mechanics, but the way it puts them together and the things it asks you to do are kind of like, I guess that's why maybe it's a little bit in the game of the year discussion. I haven't even played it, but
Mm.
that
Yeah,
it
me
seems
neither.
like, yeah, that it's like it combined things and brought in some new things in a way that is a full experience that is not like other things enough that it's really doing something unique. And that's just, it's so interesting when
Yeah.
that, you know it's like it seems like a certain type of designer or a process uh, can build something that doesn't appear to really pull from things before it. It's just like a new vision, and then it's so powerful that when you play it, it just seems like this is the way this game should be, and it's not a like another game. It's just like someone thought of it and made it, and it's so compelling that it becomes its own thing. That's such an interesting.
Right.
It's like just an innovation of. I guess that's what innovation like kind of is.
Yeah. Yeah, these games where it's like I feel like I don't know. There's a few that I think of around where it's like one or two developers working on something for forever, and they just sort of come up for a hair and show off something that's just like incredible. Like, I don't know, thinking about like there's like Caves of Cud and Dwarf Fortress and
Mm-hmm.
Blueprints, Animal Well,
Yeah,
I guess.
I just watched the
Like,
4-part
yeah.
series on Dwarf Fortress from NoClip.
Uh, yeah, I want to watch that. Yeah, I think that game is so cool, even though I have barely played it. I just am fascinated. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, same. It's just, and the story they tell is kind of a personal story from the developers, and they sort of explain
Mm,
the whole game from, and they include the journey that they went on in their life, essentially. And it's such an
mm,
interesting story that it's like these are smart people that had success but came back to this game. They had made it like other games before, but come back to the game Dwarf Fortress and just start working on it for free on the internet. And one of them, I think, has like a job, and they both, maybe they were living together. I forget what exactly the documentary had said, but uh, they just seemed like they had no real income. I think living at their parents' house at some point, and then just making this game for free as well, which is like putting in all this time into this game for free. And then, of course, like
yeah, that's
uh,
wild.
yeah, most people, I guess, perhaps became aware of Dwarf Fortress when it went live on Steam, and then we all know that like it had success on Steam. So then they sort of went
Right.
from this life of just like working on Dwarf Fortress for free and kind of being just into the game and the community to having like massive financial success, and then after that, largely kind of just remaining content working on Dwarf Fortress and putting more into it. And it's so cool to see. It's like they like one of them, I guess Tarn, the programmer on Dwarf Fortress, had like went to, I think it was Stanford or like some Harvard, like some big name university, did like undergrad, masters, I think was doing a postdoc thing teaching. So he had like classical success in the world of like intellectual academia, but then like just sort of for whatever like burnt out on that and went back to Dwarf Fortress. And so it's sort of like a person that fit in like sort of reached the limits of society in terms of the success you can have in a conventional way, then just went back to working on this game for free, then had massive success there, but then is still, as you can see in the documentary, it would seem very much largely the same person as they were before the money, and the money really having no effect. Like this, just putting out the same quality code, not being distracted by the money, not necessarily having very many things that they change or they want, just continuing steadily delivering like quality updates or something. And that's just such a weird it's just cool to have someone like figure out what they want to do and who they are and drop the rest of their life to sort of pursue it, and then not falter seemingly at all with money, like sort of be surrounded by people that also don't disappear after they get money. Like everyone just kind of continues on as normal with the vision they had. I feel like getting a bunch of money dropped on one is such a good test of, were you in fact doing the thing you wanted to do before the money showed up? Because like now you can seemingly do anything, and if you just continue steadily and are content, then it's like, oh, I guess they were pretty much found what their passion then in that case.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating and inspiring story. Very cool. Yeah, I gotta watch that. I know bits and pieces just from, I think I listened to some interview with them, but yeah, very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, they mentioned.
I think
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, you.
Yeah, or what was I gonna say? Oh, I think yeah, it was just relating, listening around like, yeah, like the sort of classical success and, like, yeah, I think because I quit my job like a little over a year ago, working as a just software engineer, and have just been bouncing around trying different things, and game development in particular. But yeah, I think like hearing things like that is helpful. Yeah, I think certainly there's like survivorship bias of people that do eventually find success, and you know, I don't want to like latch onto that too closely, but I do like that it's for this guy, or you know, these, it's like two brothers, right? Like they just kind of, it's like it seems to me that they only put it on Steam and added graphics and, you know, sold it for money because they were like, well, we just need to survive, you know. Like,
yeah, that part's definitely covered very well in the no clip stuff about the reasons why they put it on Steam. And yeah, they ended up in a short story, they ended up with like a connection to another studio that sort of had the business knowledge, and they were in a position, for personal reasons, which they cover in the thing. They sort of went that route.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. Just staying true to the vision. It's like, as long as I can survive doing something that I like, then I don't know. That's the ideal. And if not, then I'll do something else.
The neat thing is like when I was done watching this Dwarf Fortress thing, the success was just they found the success every day that they just worked on Dwarf Fortress. And they're like, there's an alternate universe where they don't release on Steam and they never make any money. They never sell Dwarf Fortress. They just keep working on it for free to the end of their life. And that's like, that has the same
Uh-huh.
success. Like, I feel like the story would almost be unchanged. It's just uh, like sometimes you have to monetize things or do certain behaviors to exist in society with the like human bodies are not perfect things. They like fail medically and stuff. And so then
Right.
there's got to be money comes in for that at some point, or like food and shelter. But otherwise,
Right.
it's like the success is just making our like is kind of just working on our vision, not even necessarily like putting it out there in a big way or making any money from it. It's sort of like, I guess the hope is like, if we did have success, that it wouldn't distract us from our vision. And it's almost like there's a risk of
Right.
like, yeah, it's like you put stuff that you make out there hoping to make it sustainable and improve on the stuff we make. And there's like almost like a risk that if something explodes, it will harm one's ability to continue to just make small cool things.
Totally. Yeah, I think, yeah, not, uh, thinking too far ahead about it, something that's highly, highly unlikely to happen. But like if a game I made ever blew up, I think I would probably go the Balatro guy's route and just stay anonymous. Like, I don't, I think that would help. Yeah. I do think, have you watched, there's a Jacob Geller video from, I don't know, maybe last year or something, called like Art for No One.
Right, I
Have you
heard that
seen
title.
this?
I've been meaning to watch some
Yeah.
Jacob Geller videos. I don't know if I've watched that many, but I think I like
Uh-huh.
his essay style. I think I like it.
Yeah, yeah, I'm definitely a fan. Yeah, I haven't watched them all, but the ones I have, I unanimously enjoy. But yeah, that one I thought was really interesting and cool, and just explored these different artists who sort of uh, make, yeah, grapple with making art and then like not having it not really be for anybody else, but then, I mean, I guess we're seeing the ones that sort of were then shared like after death, or that were shared for reasons that they like needed to survive, or whatever. There's like a few different examples, and I think about that a lot. And for me, I think like I'm I don't know if it's what this says about me, but I feel like I don't want to make art for no one. Like, I do want to make stuff that connects with people.
Yeah, the only
I
way to
guess.
measure its ability to connect is to connect it, or else we can make it, but we have no metrics to assess if it's meeting its goal without getting some kind of view count or something.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like, I don't know. Like, I think like if I made like a song that I really liked, I feel like I would want to share it. Like, I just for me personally, um, and I guess, yeah, I would like to resist any sort of pull to make something that like has mass appeal compared to uh like just like staying true to like a vision, I guess, or an artistic vision.
Hmm.
Um but I also, yeah, I'm definitely, yeah, the people that are described in the video, the art for no one, like I'm like, I don't fully relate. I guess there are things where it's like I like, if I do like some drawings and stuff like that are just for me, or like I'm like I have no need to share this for anybody else. This is just my own sort of art therapy. And I guess maybe that's similar, but I wouldn't like devote myself to a type of project like that. Like that wouldn't be my main thing, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. It seems like the way things should be is that, like, I don't know, in the quote unquote like olden days, there'd be like an art studio or a computer lab or something, and you'd be working on the computer, there'd be other people around. And so even if you're just working on a program for yourself, you end up just kind of bumping into someone and having a conversation. Or like you're doing art in a studio, you have like an assistant or something that you're talking with, or there's just like people around. But these days you can just be in a room alone doing stuff on the computer that's set to private and will not be seen. So we have like for the first time ever maybe an ability to actually make stuff completely private and just for ourselves if we want. But it's
Right.
almost like we should add back in some artificial stuff where, like, I sort of wonder if we just streamed everything, like any sort of time we're working in any editor, we just always have like a stream running that theoretically is public, and we do it in a way where like it just shows the canvas, like so you don't leak any file names or sensitive data or something. But that like every time I sit down on my computer to program or write in a document, what if it was just being recorded, or my documents were like public, and then it would just sort of be as if I was working in a public area. Like I would be on the internet, like working in the public internet where everything I'm doing can just be observed. And then whenever I do something that's good enough, I have the ability to clip that and present it at a higher, like sort of curate it and support it at a higher level. And then people can see just the good stuff, like just the stuff I'm proud of, or they can rummage through like a yard sale bins or something and find my life's work or something like that. But
Yeah.
then if everyone, it just feels like if that was just the state of things where we like by default, if we were not just at our own private computers in our rooms, but if the default and software was to kind of just share and screenshot stuff, we sort of have to do a lot of manual work. Like we can take Instagram photos of all our in progress stuff and put it up and on social media, but it would be nice if people could sort of just like glance, like if you wonder like what's that person doing, what are they working on right now, if you could sort of peer in and just see them like working on as if you're like walking by like a sculpture studio and you see like a person working on something.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a really interesting thought. I mean, yeah. I
people
think
kind of do
like
that on streams, like that's kind of what streamers are.
right.
But it seems so, it's a certain type of person that's able to do that, and they're putting in effort, uh and
Yeah,
they do
I
public,
was
yeah.
yeah, I was thinking about like cuz it I was like, well, that sounds like a nightmare to me like in terms for working like game dev personally because I'm like I don't like I just want to be like alone with my thoughts, you know? But then I have started streaming myself playing chess
Right.
like the past few weeks. Uh and like that's been chill, like I've enjoyed it. And there's a bit of company, like I just kind of talk about the games as I'm playing them and I'm like, well, I would be playing anyways. And it's yeah, it's just it's not a high
Mhm.
effort, you know? So it's like to me the depends on the activity, I guess,
It's
what I want to
interesting.
share.
The fascinating thing is if you play a certain way, or you play a certain, like you, if there's like a week that goes by where you happen to play every day, or you play a certain way, or you say certain things, and then you notice like a boost in your followers, and then you have this pull to like, it's like, oh, I gotta do that again, I gotta keep this schedule. And I don't, it's like I don't feel like playing today, but I've announced it and there's gonna be people and there's subscribers. And then it's like at some point, I guess everyone sort of faces this question of, am I just playing because I was going to play anyway, or am I forcing myself to play to chase like these numbers?
Yeah.
And like that was a
Yeah.
lot of like, or like at least one of Leo Vader's videos was dealing with that question of whether to lean into the algorithm or make the stuff you want to make. And that's such
Yes.
a puzzling, like there's no, you don't even know, you know, it takes so much meditation to figure out like which side are we on, the
Totally.
yeah, doing what we would have done
Yeah.
anyway, or like trying to make
Yeah. Yeah, because I've also started making like YouTube videos like with the same sort of like the same branding, you know, and I'm like, oh, you know, check out my Twitch stream and vice versa.
yeah,
Um, and I'm like, well, like, yeah, the YouTube videos, I'm like, some of them, I'm like, this is something I would want to make, but then some of like I made some like YouTube shorts too, where I'm like, these are just kind of nothing. Like they're
right,
like, you know, 20 seconds of just like some like kind of to me maybe entertaining moment from the stream.
right,
And I'm like, yeah, like there is like a quick validation with shorts because they get like a bajillion views. Like I had one that just like suddenly got like 30,000 views. I'm like, whoa,
yeah,
like that's wild. But I'm
yeah, it's
like,
cool.
is this really adding anything for me? Like besides the fact
Yeah,
that like it's like not really instructional. I don't think it's even that entertaining. Like I'm just like or funny, you know, like so I'm like, do I want to keep making shorts? Like I don't know. The draw is there because easy views, but I don't really know if it means anything. I don't know.
yeah. At least at minimum, it gives you a data point where that kind of short, at least on that one day, you know, gets 30K views. And if you made the choice in the future to lean into something and you know that a certain formula will get these number of views, that's good information to have. And then that's like in your arsenal for
Yeah.
later use. And then it's worth it doing the first short just to see how many views is it going to be. And
Right.
then, but then
Right.
it's interesting when if you have like a new idea, then you do like a test where you make a short that's different, and then you answer the question of how many views does that get? Because potentially it gets valuable if you have an idea that lends itself to shorts, and then you do want the audience to come in, then you have everything set
Yeah.
up. It's easier to, there's no like starting friction. But yeah, it's
Yeah. I
annoying getting like into the groove of like churning out the same style of short and just kind of watch like getting these viewers and then wondering why. That's sort of, yeah, there's like burnout vibes with that.
I'm just like, well, I don't know if this is adding anything of value except for to like YouTube's attention economy, you know? Like I
Right.
like I don't think this is instructional at all, really. Like it's just like I don't even know if it really helps me that much in terms of my own like when I like for the longer form video, like I've done a few just like looking at games that I've played and sort of analyzing them and psychoanalyzing myself. And I'm like, I think these have some value. Like, you know, totally up to the viewer to say how much. And I, you know, I'm certainly trying to improve my presentation skills as I go. But I'm like, this is something that I want to do. Whereas the shorts, I'm like, I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
it's just someone scrolling who isn't going to remember this 5 seconds after they stop watching. Yeah.
Yeah. It shows like, you know, if anyone has a question of are we optimizing our content, then it does make sense to explore like the shorts space. But then if it seems necessary, like if people are like, oh, you're like a Twitch streamer and a YouTuber, then their next question is like, do you make shorts? And then if you say no, then the impression is that you're like letting viewers get away. But then
Uh-huh.
if the response is like, but I'm not doing it for viewers, then then we're like, we're not self-contradictory anymore. We've made a decision about the content to make things a certain way, not to pursue viewers, but to have pride in whatever, like sort of just make the stuff that we can make and slowly make it better with the idea that it would be good and useful, if not today, then one
Right.
day. But yeah, then
Yeah.
shorts are just like, people just assume like, oh, if you're putting a public video, you're trying to get an audience, you're trying to make money. And then it's weird if you're like throwing away this obvious easy way to do that. or theoretically easier way. But then if that's the line, it's like, yeah, it's just hard to draw that line of like, but not shorts because I don't believe in that form of content, even though it would bring viewers in maybe. And it's because
Yeah.
it looks like laziness. It's like too lazy to make shorts, but it's like, no, I don't creatively believe in them. And it's like, that's just an excuse, like just being lazy. But it's
Yeah.
like, no, I have
Yeah. It's like
artistic
no,
integrity.
right. Yeah. It's like no judgment. I mean, it's like it doesn't matter, Like I have 15 subscribers right now or something. Like, it doesn't matter. But I'm still like as a, someone who just started posting videos like 2 weeks ago. I'm like faced with these decisions already around like or like clickbait titles too. Like I'm like, well, all the other top chess YouTubers do it. I'm like, I don't want to do it. Like, yeah, or like, but I also want people to click. Like, I don't want to make a thumbnail that's just like super boring and get 0 views. I don't know. Finding that balance is interesting
Yeah.
to me, at
Uh,
least.
yeah. It's weird. Like when if I have something of value, I feel like here's a feeling is like a feeling of responsibility. If I realize that I have something of value that I'm undervaluing or not sharing, then my thing is like I should share this to people. Uh, and it's interesting that let's say I make like the most fun game ever and then I just have bad art and then people are like addicted to it but they're frustrated like the art looks bad and so they like can't stop playing it but the art is bad so their friends won't get into it and they don't have like the maximum fun they could have playing it. Then
Hmm.
it just feels like I either like I should not own that. Like the game should be out there and other people should do what they want with it, make their own art, or I have like I should pay an artist to polish the game with art so that the players that I owe something. Like the players have given me money, they're the community, then I owe them to put a layer of polish so that there isn't like a sharp corner. It's like almost like a do like actually I there's this game called I think AER something of old. You fly around between these islands in the game, and it's sort of like a walking simulator. But there was this one moment where I got to this platform, it was glowing. I obviously had to do some action, and nothing worked, and so then I kept flying around, and eventually I learned you have to press F to take out like a lantern, and that was like a moment where it was sort of like I feel like the devs like owe this to me, like I'm doing
Uh-huh.
I'm like playing the game, investing the time, believing in it, and they sort of it's like of course they didn't, but it's in a way it's like they sort of should have not had that sharp corner of they don't tell you the controls of the game and you don't know to press F, because all I had to do was press F and then I could continue the game, and that's what I want to do is like experience their game and then say good things about it. But it's like not their fault for not putting in something that I wanted or something. Uh, but it was just a weird moment of would they have some kind of responsibility? Like they led me on, they told me a certain thing, and then they sort of just left me hanging there. Uh, and maybe they didn't. Maybe I'm missing something, but it's weird that it's like. But then of course no human could know everything and patch all the bugs and everything super fast. So it's just this weird moment
Right.
of. But it is true that if you like go into a business and you get injured, it is the business's fault. They have to have like a
Right.
safe business. So then yeah, it's like
Yeah.
what if someone invests 100 hours and then you just crash their game and take their save file and corrupt their hard drive? It's like
Uh-huh.
surely that but what if it's just like they missed a cutscene and so they were robbed of like the full experience that they trusted you, they invested in, and there's like a gray area of the people are coming to you and you have influence over them, and so the larger, there's some equation, like the larger the audience, the more they're willing to go the extra mile for you, the person who's taking their money. You start to owe them something and need to, I don't know, like protect them, give them sort of deliver them something that doesn't just it doesn't just become like the fire festival where like everybody goes to this island and then they almost die or something.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. Just a scam. Yeah, I feel like yeah, it is such an interesting um question around like how much do artists owe their communities or like I think it's so contextual and it's like well certainly, you know, for like game developers I'm like they should definitely put photosensitivity and trigger warnings and stuff like that. That's
Mm.
like for one, and they should not uh like overcharge for an experience that is going to be cut short. Just like
Mm.
basic stuff. Like it shouldn't be a scam and it shouldn't harm somebody. But then there's stuff like around writers, and I think this could apply for game developers as well. Like if you start a story, do you have a responsibility to
Oh yeah.
finish it? And
There's a
it's
story
like,
I'm there is a story I'm waiting on like book 3 for. Uh,
right, yeah, I'm like, I have that with like so many different series, and I'm
yeah.
like, I, I do see that like both sides of like, I mean, I think like
Right.
the most common or like one of the big ones right now is with George R. R. Martin in the last Game of Thrones book,
Hmm. Yeah,
where
I
it's like
wasn't
it
even
seems
tracking
like
if that was. I heard a while ago it was going on. I didn't check. I didn't know it was still
right,
like a.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not waiting on it, like I read like the first couple and couldn't get super into it, but I I see sort of both sides where I'm like it's but I do think in most cases that the artists like do have some level of responsibility to finish the story.
Yeah, I would.
And
I
if
almost.
they can't do
Yeah.
it, then that's okay. Like I think there's like one series where
Yeah.
like that I really love called where first book's called Name of the Wind by Patrick
Yeah. That was
Rothfuss.
the
Or
series I was thinking of.
oh no way,
I read the
that's
first.
funny.
I guess I read the first two, and I read the side
Yeah,
story, the RE side
yeah,
story,
yeah, yeah. I
and then
love
every
it
once in a
so
while I
much.
just look
Yeah.
up like, is he gonna is he gonna do the last one?
Yeah, yeah, that guy. Yeah, this is like a big point, like topic of conversation between myself and my brother because we both love those books. And we're like, and he's mad at the guy, and I'm like, I get it, but like also, like, I'm like, I think, I mean, I don't know the full story, but like he visited my college at some point and like was he was super nice to this fan of his who was like going through a tough time and just like hung out with her for forever. He just seemed like a really nice guy. Maybe maybe that's not true, but based on that
Yeah.
interaction,
Yeah.
and from my understanding it's like he's just having some mental health stuff where it seems like he just can't do it. And I'm like, well, as long as you're trying, like I think you like. And if it comes to the point where you're just like, it's just not gonna work for you to continue this, then like I will accept that. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's an interesting question. That's
Yeah. I've
funny that you're
never.
thinking of the same
It makes me think
series.
that, like, if a certain number of years go by, it's almost like they should hire out a couple of ghostwriters or some fan fictions and then be like the editor on it and then eventually officially
Mm,
endorse like if someone crosses the line where like this is a good final installment, then the author would just be like, yeah, I'll take a cut of the money, but the thing is licensed out and this is now the official end. And maybe that doesn't even like, they could still go back and then eventually they do feel like writing the final one and then they'll just be like, yeah, isn't that weird, there's two alternate timelines for the third thing and one is the official author and one is just a good continuation. Uh but that, because it's sort of like they created something of value, they took people's money, and then they couldn't deliver on the ultimate promise. But
right.
I think the misstep is if they like hoard the rights forever and then their estate like shuts, like their estate sues any fan that tries to write a finish after their death or something. then it's sort of like, well, now you're just like these fans just want to continue on what you started. And if it's like, especially like posthumously, uh,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not saying that's like what should happen in this case. I feel like it's sort of unknown what is the best. Like the worst, I guess the worst outcome is like they write like a bad final book and people pay for it and it's not good and they're not proud of it.
Uh-huh.
Then it's like,
Yeah,
but if
yeah.
we don't want that, then all we can do is just like wait until forever until they've written the final one.
Yeah.
It's making me
Yeah,
think of
it's
this
an
other
interest.
thing though that like the musician Prince, someone
Mm-hmm.
made like Netflix commissioned someone to make like a 6 to 9 hour like docu series on like the full story of Prince, and then before it released, Prince's estate said they didn't like how it portrayed Prince, and so they just said you can't release this anywhere ever. Uh, and so the guy just can't release it. Like he made this whole documentary, spent like three
Uh-huh.
years, and then it's just like and no
Dang.
one. It's like this. No one can ever see this documentary either because you can't release it legally. Uh,
That's
and that's interesting to
interesting.
me because that's like the opposite of like it's like yeah, people like Prince because he was good and they support him, and this was like someone making a thing, but then whoever it's like people control the rights and they remove like the only thing they do is withhold the freedom to learn more about the person, to preserve I guess the brand and the money and stuff. And that's kind
Yeah.
of weird because then
I
it's like that's a disservice to it's like the community was created around this person and now this person is like working against the community or like their estate is. uh it's just kind of a
Yeah,
weird like
that's
flip.
an interesting one. I think I feel like Prince was brought up in the Geller video. Maybe like
Hmm.
the some of or maybe it was a different artist, I don't remember. Like some of his music was released posthumously, like kind of against his will. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I think I think if like if he explicitly stated, yeah, it's a little weird when it's like his estate, but if he, made music and said this is to be shared with no one ever, then like I
Mhm.
think that's his right. It's an interesting or like the I think yeah, like also the beginner's guide. Have you played the beginner's guide?
Yeah, yeah, I played that.
Yeah, I feel like is like a such a good exploration of the whole topic around like consent and art and it's like well it really like it wasn't for uh the fake Davy Reedon to share the whoever whatever his name
Yeah.
Coda's
Yeah.
work like he yeah he wasn't making it to be shared. But yeah, for the I feel like the documentary case is an interesting one because it's like, well, it's like his family post death, and like the documentary isn't Prince's work, like it's like stuff about him, like it's a different case.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a whole interesting space of just like the cancellation of certain popular personalities and whether that's a good thing or like if someone could come back from being canceled or what's like this whole apology like song and dance that is done sometimes like that people need to do, and if they don't do it then they like remain canceled or something. That's
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because I just feel like it should sort of be the case that things should be transparent, and if someone makes a mistake then like we hate them for it, but they can they can once again regain our trust by doing hopefully like meaningful things like meaningful change or something like that, and then we just want to avoid stuff like that in the future or whatever they did. uh,
Yeah, I feel like
and
the current
yeah.
status quo is generally they double down and then are
Yeah.
just come back and then people like them again for because people are reactionary like like I don't know like Louis
Yeah.
CK like or whatever where it's like yeah like it's super messed up. I don't think he ever really apologized. Now he's seems to be doing well again, you know? Like it's like,
Yeah.
well,
There
yeah,
was a
it's
cool
just
one, like John Mulaney went. Have you followed like John Mulaney at all? I just saw one of his Netflix
a
specials,
little
and
bit.
yeah,
Yeah, I know
I knew
he
he was like a
yeah.
prolific comedian, or he had his own style. Then then all of a sudden I saw this special where he was talking about uh like being a drug addict and being confronted by all his his friends, some well-known people that he knew as friends, that like forced him to go to rehab. But he does this whole like hour-long stand-up routine about his drug intervention and how he really spiraled, and they were right,
You know,
you
I
know.
think I have watched
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
And that
Rings
was
a bell.
so, to me that was like, this is how it should be. Like, you know, he could easily just go into obscurity and be canceled as like the guy who secretly did drugs and we didn't know it, and now he doesn't do comedy anymore. But he like, I think he did like a real service to people, showing that like his friends were right. He went through rehab, but the fact that he made it all into like a bit where he's like, not only is he back and being funny, but he's teaching us this thing about, you know, a popular famous person making a huge mistake and then getting the help hopefully that he needed, and now hopefully it's behind him. And but also he's like, it's strong enough that he didn't just like hire a PR firm to hide it all. He just, that's part of like who he is now, and he's using
Sure.
that. And
Yeah.
it's just very,
A little
I
bit.
feel like that's uh it's just kind of interesting to hear the part of the story that usually you don't hear because the people go away or they get canceled. And but he sort of is like telling that part at a large scale, and then
Sure.
it's just, yeah, it's like interesting because it's unique and we just don't hear from people that, you know, are still around. They don't talk about that stuff, or they disappear or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sort of addressing the actual harm done, which, I mean, sounds like wasn't a huge amount. It was just, you know, self harm. Yeah. Have you heard the term transformative justice?
I guess so.
Yeah.
That's
I feel
just,
like I don't know.
is that like rehabilitation kind of stuff?
It's like this whole thing that I probably won't be able to describe well off the cuff, but it's in my best attempt, uh, like when facing harms, like a form of justice that seeks to transform the conditions that created the harm. So, like in this case, it sort of reminds me of that, where it's like, well, you know, he became addicted to drugs and, uh, you know, harmed some of his friends and family in certain ways. And then not only is, you know, like repairing those relationships directly, but also given that he's, you know, also a public figure, is like using that platform to talk about it with uh, the, you know, more people, and to
Hmm.
sort of address the root cause of these things, and like, you know, why and how to get better. Um, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have time left, but do you want to see some? I could share my screen and show some shader stuff, like 10 minutes, but it doesn't matter. We could also.
Yeah, yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah, let me share the screen then. Yeah, I'll share my Godot window. Yeah, you were saying you did some simple stuff with shaders before. I also am just, I'm kind of starting. I've done shaders in different places before, but now I'm trying to do like a series of experiments where, because shaders are so hard to figure out what they're like, to control them, figure out what the values are, what they're doing. So I have this idea that I'll do a series
Yeah.
of experiments to try to prove to myself that I understand the matrix manipulations and things that that happen. And like,
Nice.
Yeah, like one thing that I noticed is, like, are you familiar with this? Like the vertex and the fragment functions,
Mm-hmm.
like in a shader. Yeah. So this,
Yep.
I just have like, yeah, this mesh, and there's a shader on it. Yeah, the material has like a color shader, and yeah, so then this is a shader, and uh, the first thing was that I can like add 1 to all the vertices, and that uh, puts the like increments the y coordinate of each vertex, each corner of the mesh by 1. But then the thing that I did here was, and I'll have to sort of talk through this a bit, but I made like a variable. Yeah, I made a variable that can be like set in the vertex function and then read in the fragment function, which I guess, as we know, runs for every fragment or pixel. But so what I was doing was setting the normal as, or no, let's call this color. So I made a color that's equal to the, yeah, just the vertex position. And then, so I guess whenever vertex is called, it sets the color to like the vector 3 like coordinate of the vertex, which is like a 0. I guess it's -1 to 1 in a vector 3. And then in fragment, you can set the color of the fragment to color. And then what I noticed was, like, I believe that this is in model space, because this white corner, like white would be like 1, 1, 1, and if on the space of the model, yeah, then so like the fragments
like if
around
you drag
it,
it won't change. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't change yet. And then there's like a dark like 0, 0, 0. That makes sense. I also found that if I set color to normal, then we have this where like blue is like, you know, RGB. So red is 1, 0, 0. Green is like 0, 1, 0. And so these are all like, you know, vector, like 3 vectors that have a 1 in them and 2 zeros. And the whole surface is like, so I guess the normal, this is actually a point where I'm kind of confused, is that I would sort of think, like, if I think about what is the normal of this vertex, would it be like, I would kind of accept if there was 3 vertices overlapping here where each one of them belongs to a certain like face. But I also think maybe there's only 1 vertex, in which case would the normal just be shooting out at like a diagonal, like the average of all 3 face normals would be this point. But then why would these be flat blue, right? Because like the fragments that are like in the middle here or whatever, I don't know what vertex is getting called prior to them. It would be like one of the corners. I wouldn't think that all the corners would be like all the corners would not be a perpendicular to the flat surface of this blue surface. And if they were, then wouldn't like these other 2 surfaces be blue? Because if this vertex was like pointing directly down the line of this like Z, this blue Z axis, then you'd think that some of the fragments would get the color blue. Like you'd almost think that there'd be like a circle of blue around this, or like this one vertex would set a color, and then all the fragments that are closest to it would have a flat color, and then there'd be some like sharp transition to another vertices. And then the other faces are all black, like they're -1 or 0 facing in that direction.
Right.
So I just found that I need to do more experiments but it matters about the UV unwrapping as well. I think like if you take a mesh, you can see when you unwrap the mesh into a flat plane, it can be done in different ways. And then, but I guess that would be more like the UV coordinates, which I never tested that. I don't even know if it's the right size. I guess vector 2, because it's a flat plane. Yeah. So then, but the next thing I did was like, make this so that it's multiplied by the model matrix. And then I have to make this like a vec4. Oh yeah, VE, yeah, 3, 4.
Something like that.
Oh yeah, and then this one is XYZ. Oh yeah, and then and then this. Then this has to be done. Yeah, and then this does now. That does change. So this
Right.
is, yeah, like, because it's every point on the. And well, here, yeah, there's like a breakdown in my understanding where the color is being set per vertex, and then every fragment is sort of every fragment that I guess you could see as like a child of that vertex would be the same color, but now it seems like the colors are more of an average of their closest vertices. And I don't know, I haven't thought about like why that is, but yeah, it's more, yeah, now we've, by
Yeah.
multiplying by a matrix, yeah, we did it from model space to world space, and so now it changes based on
Yeah.
where it is in the world, yeah.
Yeah. I think there's also like a render mode where you can do world vertices just to like but I think it's like literally the same thing as doing this model matrix multiplication that you're doing. Um, but yeah, it is fascinating. I do struggle with all this stuff a lot. Yeah, my understanding is like it's all triangles. Like so, every
Hmm.
like
Yeah,
it's
actually, yeah.
every surface is like a little triangle that's described, and so then the vertices like what's passed to the fragment shader, it can sort of interpret between the three vertices. I don't know.
Yeah.
I also get
Well,
confused.
in there, yeah, about the vertices thing. Yeah, I don't know exactly how they're passed, but there is, you can make a basic plane and you can say, show me the wireframe. And
Right,
if
right.
you don't subdivide, like, yeah, it's just, there's two triangles to make a square, a vertice at each corner. But then if you, yeah,
Yeah.
subdivide it, now you have a bunch. And then their tutorial in Godot is like put a shader on this and then animate the Y value to make like waves. And
Uh,
that kind of works. And then yeah, just the final thing I wanted to show was that there's some kind of like I just put this cube off in the distance, and this cube has a shader called depth, and then all I've done is I made the color like pink by setting the color. But then if you set the depth, like see if it goes obviously behind, you don't see it. But if you set the depth of this to 1, then now it's always in front.
right, yeah,
So you
that's
see
cool.
it through. And so then the next thing I want to learn is I would like to do some kind of comparison that like maybe there's some interplay between the two shaders where like only this cube would show that cube behind, or can I could go into screen space, like maybe I write a screen shader and then I use like a depth map to but I haven't figured out how I, like maybe these shaders would be writing to a certain depth buffer that then later when I'm in the shader that's on this thing, I could detect. But I don't actually, yeah, I guess I could go into screen space, access some kind of depth buffer in screen space, and try to read a value that like this thing had set in its shader to have some kind of interaction between the two of them.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, the
But
thing
yeah,
the thing I find most challenging with shaders is like you can't do a print statement, you know?
yeah,
Like I I don't know if there's any good way to like really debug when you have like really complicated ones because
yeah.
the only debugging is just what you see on your screen, you know?
Yeah, the most sophisticated thing I've seen with people so far in YouTube videos is they whenever they have like a mathematical expression, they render it to flat white texture using like white and black to be 0 to 1. And then like if they want to build like a wave construct, they design it and everything on just like a flat sprite where they can sort of clearly see the wave they've designed, and then they'll, maybe like one of them made like a donut. It was like a pulse that started from a certain point and it pulsed outward as like a black ring. And then they combined that with like the screen would read offset values based on the color of the donut ring, and so then they got like this ripple effect on the screen. But like I guess that was
That's
that
a
was
good
the debugging
approach.
step, was using basically like a mask. But then I saw
Right.
that on
Like
like on
little
a site like
building
Shader
blocks.
Toy,
Yeah.
like Shader Toy, people post shaders, and you can find a bunch of shaders that are just like making like black and white patterns on a surface, and then you, depending on the pattern that you want, you take that math that clearly makes the pattern. But yeah, there's this unknowable problem of like, are those black values -1 and are the white values +1? And when you're working in like a UV space, it's 0 to 1, but then like if you translate something to another like world space or whatever, sometimes a coordinate flips. Uh,
Right.
and yeah,
Right. Yeah,
and
that
so yeah,
stuff is very tricky. Yeah.
but yeah, I guess my project right now is I made a 3D version of my second screen Experience Jam logo, which I think you've seen the video. And then I'm trying to make a little game out of that 3D environment, like a walking simulator. And then I got distracted trying to add like a water wave effect in one location. And then I just started trying to learn more about shaders. Uh,
Nice.
but maybe, yeah,
Yeah,
basically
I've
that
messed around
logo.
with
Yeah.
water so much.
Yeah, water. I like sort of, yeah,
Yeah.
low poly water. The problem I was having was if you move the vertices, you have to reset the normals. And I want like flat
Right.
shading. So then I was exporting like a plane from Blender, and then I noticed that Godot was simplifying the plane back into like 2 triangles when I had exported it with a lot of triangles. So then I had to like export it. I had to like make it a bumpy plane so that there was no way for Godot to simplify the export, so that it would actually retain all its vertices. And then I started wondering just
Oh, that's
about,
fun.
like, I had this question of like, how are the normals? Like every vertex has a normal, but I want for every
Yeah.
fragment, like I want the normal for every fragment that is just perpendicular to the face, so I can do flat shading. But then I just sort of kind of got lucky finding that. Like I just set the normal by the vertices and passed it on, and it worked. But then I just had this question of
Uh-huh.
like, but like what is setting the normal for that vertex, and why does it work? Because
Yeah,
if
I
I
think
didn't
there's
want
like
flat, yeah,
yeah, I think there's like different methods. Like one's like some like triplanar. It's like you sort of like sample the vertices in like different directions around it and then use that to construct the normal, which kind of makes
yeah.
sense intuitively, but it is like computationally expensive.
And even then, I have a question of like in the fragment function, can I get an array of 3 like if assuming I'm in a triangle and I'm working on a fragment, can I get the 3 vertices that are part of that triangle and my distance to them? If I had the vertices, I could calculate the
Yeah.
distance to them. But that's the one thing I don't know is, does
Yeah.
every fragment have that information? Or is there some kind of
I think you'd
guaranteed
have to
like
pass
order?
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you'd have to pass it from the vertex uh portion, vertex function or whatever it's called, like through a varying like
Hmm.
you'd have to calculate it there and then
Then the
yeah,
order
I
matters
it's
though.
all very hazy.
Like then I
Yeah.
wonder,
Yeah.
yeah, like the previous 3 times that vertex is called, and then when you call fragment, are the 3 previous calls to, like there'd have to be some call order that I could know when I'm setting things. But yeah, this is the debugging thing, is I have to use like just color and stuff to like figure out what vertices are related to a fragment in like tricky. I was thinking I should set up like a whole
Right.
project that's just like a bunch of cubes with simple shaders on them that are doing different experiments, and then just go down the line and like prove that each thing is happening.
Yeah, that'd be a good exercise for me too. I did like a whole course on shaders and
Mm.
like this was like many months ago, maybe like half a year ago, and I was like, I think I understand the flow at the very least, and
Mm.
like it's like okay, everything's happening in parallel, and like yeah, you can pass this information between these, and now it's so hazy that I don't, I can't, I don't remember or have a good understanding. So I should revisit for sure.
Yeah, I'm now like that experiment we just did there. Now I understand sort of model space decently and world space, which is like intuitive. And then
Mm-hmm.
I have this idea that there is like a two-dimensional screen space where everything's finalized and everything's flat, and it's just sort of.
Right.
But then there's like intermediaries of like clip space is one of them, which is
Yeah.
I guess because when you have a camera in a 3D space, you have the near plane, the far plane that clips things, and I guess there's a 0 to 1 like depth inside that space. But then there's like projection space or something, and then clip space, and then screen space, and then at some point there's
Uh-huh.
something called like normalized device coordinates. And I was trying to read up on like everyone's dividing by W. Like this is just a thing that I keep seeing.
Oh,
Is
okay.
yeah, people.
This is
Uh,
past my understanding.
yeah, I don't even know. I just know from seeing it a lot that people are like, and then to get this value, you have to divide by W. And people are like, why do you divide by W? And then they're like, oh, because that normalizes the coordinates between like 0 and 1 or something. And I was just trying to,
Interesting.
but I wasn't even at a point where I can think of like an experiment. Because ideally, I would have a similar cube with the colors on it experiment where I just move it around and see that it's changing color in accordance with some kind of space that it's in.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole like it's interesting too being in the Godot editor versus previewing through a camera changes because then I think you really do have clip space when you're playing a Godot game with a camera, but I don't know if the editor has a near and a far plane in that sense.
Yeah, yeah, I think the editor camera, yeah, you can change around the settings, but I think it has that stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
interesting.
Yeah, it's cool though. Ideally I would get to a point where I can start to just think of things that I want to happen and sort of have an intuitive understanding of how I need to like what kind of shader things need to happen to get the
Mm.
effect. Just yeah, better capability to like think in that space.
Yeah, yeah, I feel like it is a totally different mode of thinking compared to sort of, I don't know, other
Hmm.
types of programming.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I don't know if we briefly like in the last we've already gone like over time, but we had this idea of recording more of like shorter devlogs. It kind of depends if we get into a rhythm where we are working on some project or projects like during the week and we're making progress and we have like if right now if we had an idea about what we want to work on and like small things we want to accomplish over the next week, then in some sense we could say them and then in the next week we report if we did it or not, and
Ooh,
maybe that could sort of
yeah, I
transition
like it.
into a format if like because that could sort of be like a couple of minutes that we do at some point during the call that I like clip out, and maybe that becomes its own thing of it would be like content about because that would truly be like the process of us trying to develop games and sort of checking in about what progress we've made, and that seems like a bit that seems interesting to have that in as a separate thing that we could sort of use in addition to the longer conversation.
Yeah, yeah. No, I like it. Yeah, I don't
Yeah, we
really
could
have
try to.
anything prepared for today, but for
Yeah,
the future. That sounds good.
yeah. I think it would work if like most of our calls, if we do like sort of we sort of like check in with each other, do the small talk thing, and then we sort of come out. We just sort of say what we want to say about our projects or what or whatnot, or maybe even what we're struggling with if we didn't do anything. Like what, maybe a statement about what we think led us to that, and the idea would be trying to improve our capability of predicting what we're going to be able to do or something,
Yeah, yeah.
and that segment, yeah, that could be either just more of a dense like something's being said there in that segment, uh, and we could clip it out or not. Uh, and then then it would, otherwise everything else would stay the same.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. I like it.
Yeah.
Helpful to, yeah, minor accountability buddies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'll see you next week then if we're free.
Yeah, that sounds great. Let me just double check. I'm going to a wedding this weekend, but I think I'll be back by then. Yes, I will be around.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Cool. Sounds good. We'll go talking. I'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, see you next time.
Yeah.
Bye.